Good afternoon. Hopefully you had a good day at school today. We are starting out now with doing a review of Chapter 5, and I have Chapter 5 Part 1 review because this is the first half of the chapter. You'll see that after this, or that we took this chapter and broke it into two sections, one dealing with our adding and subtraction of fractions, and the last part is going to be on multiplication and division. What I want you to do to make the best use of the review is for you to solve the problems on each slide first, and then I will tell you to hit pause, and please do that and solve the problems, and then we will go over them and you can compare your answers to see if you are doing them correctly or not. And if you're not, obviously that is some definite points that you're going to want to mark down, take note of, to be able to ask the teacher tomorrow. So go ahead and hit pause and answer both of these questions. So go ahead and do that. So the first part says that we're going to round 7/8 to the nearest half. And so when you're trying to round, again, there's a couple different ways you can look at it. One way is to think of a number line, and you've got 8/8, which equals 1 whole. 0/8 equals 0. So on my number line, I'm trying to find the halfway mark, and to find half, that would be half of the denominator, which is 4/8. Okay, that is my 1/2 mark. So what is the numerator closest to? 0, 4, or 8? And in this case, it is closer to the 8. Therefore, my answer to this is 1 whole is what it is nearest to. For this next one, I have 3 and then 13 20ths, excuse me. And we're not going to worry about the 3, the whole number itself, as nearly as much as the fraction itself. So again, if we use the number line, we've got our line, and 3 whole 3 is going to be here, and that would be 0/20. Out here would be 4, actually, which is 3 and 20/20, which does indeed, since this equals 1, you'd add that on, that's equaling our 4. This again is equaling our 3. And our 3.5 mark is going to be 3 and then half of the denominator, which is 10/20. So again, we ask ourselves the question, is 13 closer to 0, 10, or 20? And in this case, 13 is closer to my 10, which equals 3.5. So again, remember, your only possible answers are 0, 1/2, or 1 whole for this problem. And since we have a mixed number here, it would be 3, 3.5, or the next number, which is 4. Those are your only options to select from. And again, when it says round to the nearest half, you can see how they're divided into halves. 3 to 3.5 is a half, and a half to the next number 4 is half. Okay? So let's look at our next problem, which is simply saying find what 8 13ths plus 9 13ths is. So basically, find the sum. You're going to add them together. So go ahead and do that. So again, we need to always set this up so that it is written vertically. We are adding. Now in this case, we have common denominators. Again, that is the very first thing that we always need to make certain of, is do we have common denominators? Because if we do not, then there is no way to add or subtract the fraction itself. So since they are the same, then we simply add our numerators, which 9 plus 8 is 17, over 13. Now we have to make certain that it is indeed in simplest form. So since we need to write it in simplest form, we simply divide 17 divided by 13, and it goes into it one time. Subtract 13 from 17, we get 4. 4 is my numerator, 13 is my denominator. And many of you are already looking at 17/13, knowing that 13 goes into it one whole, and then subtract that and we get 4 left over out of 13, giving myself the same answer. Okay? Always reassess the fraction. Is that in simplest form, 4/13? And it is. So let's look at our next problem. Go ahead and hit pause and solve this. So we have 8/10 minus 4/10. Do we have common denominators? Yes, we do. Therefore, we can just simply subtract. So 8 minus 4 is 4. 10 is the denominator, staying the same. Is this in simplest form? No, it is not. Therefore, we need to divide by the greatest common factor, which is 2. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 10 divided by 2 is 5, giving us a grand total of 2/5. Let's look at our next problem, and it just simply says to solve. So you're going to solve this problem, or these two mixed numbers, by adding them. So go ahead and do that. 1 2/9 plus 7 6/11. We are adding. Now, again, we always want to start, since we have unlike denominators, we start with the 11, and we can do multiples of 11 if the 9 does not go into it equally. So the first multiple would be 22. 9 does not go into that. So we try 33. 9 doesn't go into that equally either. 44, that doesn't. 55, that doesn't. 66, and it does not. 77 does not. 88 does not. So the only one left is 99, which is 9 times 11 to give us that. So we know that that is at least a common denominator, and it is our least. So 99 is going to be our common denominator. Actually, it's our least common denominator. And how many 11s go into 99? Well, times 9. So we get 54. And then 9 times 11. So 2 times 11, which is 22. And then we're going to add these together. So then we get 1 plus 7 is 8. And then we have 22 plus 54, which is going to give me 76 over 99. Okay. So now the question is this answer in simplest form? That's the real question. So we have to look at this and say, all right, using some of our divisibility rules, if you like, starting first of all, are they even numbers? No. We know that 3 would go into 99. Does 3 go into 76 equally? And if you're not sure, you can always use simple division to where it goes into it twice. 6 subtract 1, 16, and that does not go into it equally. We still have 1 left over to get 1/3, so that's definitely not going to work. Okay, and as we work through this, you will see that it is indeed in simplest form. Okay, I know that it looks strange to you, possibly, that there has to be another number that goes into it. Again, it's just a matter of trying to work through those, using those divisibility rules. If you want to add the digits together and see if 3, when you add 7 plus 6, that's 13. Does 3 go into 13 equally? No, it does not. So that's not going to work. Then you can try your 4, which is the last 2 digits. Does 4 go into this particular number? but does 4 go into 99? That's the whole other question. So again, you can go over to the side and try to work those out. Goes into it once, subtract, you get 36, and you can see that it goes into it 19 times. So does 99 possibly work? Well, it goes into it 2 times, which is 8, subtract 1, 9, and it's not going to go into that equally either. So there's lots of different ways you can look at it, but it is in simplest form. Let's look at our next problem and go ahead and hit pause and solve this. So we have 5 4/5 minus 4 1/7. And so once again, we need to try to find a common denominator. The least common is going to be the best. So we try 7. See if 5 goes into 7. It does not. So we do the next multiple, which is 14. It does not. 21. It does not. 28 does not. The next one is 35, and you can see that 35 does. So then we multiply by 5, and 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 7 is 35, so 4 times 7 is 28. We are subtracting, so we simply subtract these, and we end up with 23 35ths. And then 5 minus 4 is 1. Then again, you're checking to see if these are going to be a number that can go into 23 and 35 to reduce those. Well, 23 being prime, if it does not go into 35 equally, which it does not, then it is in simplest form. So that's your answer for this. And we'll try our last problem. So go ahead and hit pause and solve this. So we get 4 1/6 minus 2 1/2. And when we subtract, we try to do that, and can we subtract these problems? No. We're looking for our least common denominator, which we start again with the largest denominator, which is 6, and 2 goes into that, so we found our least common denominator, which is 6. And 2 times 3, so then 1 times 3 is 3. Now we go to subtract, and we cannot subtract because of the 1/6 is smaller than 3/6. So we're going to need to borrow from the 4, which becomes a 3, and we're going to add 6/6 to my 1/6 because this is equaling 1 whole. Some of you keep wanting to add 10 to this number. That is not what you're doing. You're adding 1 whole, which is 6/6, and we're adding it on to the number that was originally there, which was the 1/6, to give me 7/6. Now I can subtract, and I get 7 minus 3, which is 4, over the 6, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. Now we also need to make certain that our fraction is in simplest form. It is not. You can divide both of those by 2, and we still bring the 1 whole over from here, and then 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, to give me a total of 1 2/3. Okay, this one again is a lot more involved because of the fact that you have to borrow because of the subtraction problem with the 1 being smaller than the 3 when we compare numerators. So again, please be very careful when you borrow that you're adding 6/6 or whatever. It's basically whatever the denominator is, and I know we talked about this intensely in class. Again, the 6, why we chose 6 is because we can pick any number that we want and put it over itself to give an answer of 1, which is what we borrowed. So always make it whatever the denominator is so that you already have common denominators, and add it together with the original fraction that was there. That's why you get 7/6. Okay? Again, please take note of anything that you have here today. and we can discuss it in class tomorrow. I wish you the very best luck on your test, and happy studying.